everyone, welcome back to On the Fly Table, part 5 of our Gateway to Gold series. Obviously, the topic being today, Team Sweden. So with the Swedish team, I think they are definitely contenders this year for the gold medal. And I would like to kind of call them my favorites. I think they're definitely within the top 3, if not the 4th team, obviously with Canada, US, Russia. And I think Sweden will probably be the 4th, if not the 3rd. Just kind of depending on how that Russian team kind of mends, as I said in that video. But in general, I think between Sweden and Russia, they'll be definitely in that top 3. And in general, they do have that really solid defensive core. And then with their forward depths a little bit lacking when it comes to the kind of that 4th, 3rd line. And then their goalies, I think, will be kind of a downfall, especially if they can't figure it out. But I think with the goalies, they definitely don't have as many options as, say, Canada, Russia, US would. But in general, I think that they have a shot at winning the gold. And without a doubt, I think they can definitely take it. Although, of course, they still got to play the games. And the one thing I will mention is that as of now, I don't see any other leagues other than the NHL being a part of this Swedish team. In the past, they have included them. So I will be interested to see how many non-NHL players from Sweden are going to play on the Olympic team, as they have sort of elected to go with that sort of route in terms of picking guys from other leagues other than the NHL, obviously with the Swedish leagues and all these other leagues. In the end, I think Sweden, for their best shot to win, I think they will end up going all NHL players, but of course that remains to be seen. We'll now take a look at the depth chart. So on the left wing, you got Janssen, you got Hagelin, Nyquist, Landeskog, Forsberg, Burakovsky, Grunstrom, Raquel Pedersen, and then Lucas Raymond. So I think Raymond will be kind of the guy. I think he might be a dark horse for this team. I think he might be 13th forward, 14th forward, mainly because I think they want to try and include some younger guys on this team. So they're not starting to kind of sort of age out. In the end, of course, Sweden is starting to get up there a little bit in age in terms of their star players. So I think we can bring in young talent, kind of get them used to that international competition. Is never a bad thing, and not kind of putting them in that top line role right away. I think will be a pretty good sort of experience for Raymond, and I think it'll benefit him quite well. Moving on to the centers, we have Markstrom, Backlund, Järnkrok, Johansson. You got Victor Rask, William Karlsson, Mika Zibanejad. You got Elias Lindholm, and then Joel Eriksson Ek. So once again, you know, it's another kind of good list of guys. Obviously, that center position is something that they do take kind of pride in. The one thing, though, as I'll show in the next part, is that the right wingers versus the left wingers are quite short, so there are very few right wingers on this team, so I think I will look to the left wing to be playing a little bit of their offside, mainly just because there's only 4 left wing spots on a team, and someone's going to have to play on the other side, especially because there's only really 5 NHL or high-level quality right wingers. So in the end, I think it's really important for Sweden to try and get as many of those left wingers to play their offside, because I think it will end up helping them in the end. So as I mentioned before, there are 5 right wingers that I think might have a shot at the team. Those include Hornqvist, Silverberg, Fast, Arvidsson, and then William Nylander. So obviously with the forward group, pretty solid, although the one thing I'll say is to look for those left wingers to play the right side. Moving on to the defenseman, we have the lefty. So as I said in the previous videos, it's not as important for the defenseman to be playing the right side, although it is something to take in consideration, as obviously that's the last thing they need to be worrying about is not having the experience played there, and then having to make that gold medal game play that you never made before, and then kind of freaking out there. So I think in the end it is important to sort of stick them as much on their right side, but in general we'll kind of see how they want to play it. So on the left side, we have Eller, Hedman, you got Ekman Larson, you got Ekholm, Brodin, Hag, Dahlin, and then Lindholm. So pretty good quality left defenseman, I think. On any team, you could definitely stick those 8 guys in any combination you want. Obviously, they are all left defensemen, but I think with that, you'd be definitely setting an all-star lineup, and without a doubt, you could win the cup pretty well guaranteed. But of course, this is an international competition, so you don't get to make all these all-stars. Not like the NHL games where you can set all your lineups and make that one-team dynasty. That's $150 million over the cap. But in general, I think the Sweden team definitely has a pretty solid shot, especially with their defense core. Moving on to the right defensemen, there's Stroman, Larson, Carlson, and then John Klingberg. So obviously not as much. And the one thing I will say is that with Stroman and Larson, I don't think they will get playing time, so I will look to one of those left defensemen to play their offside. And it will end up being someone that does play a little bit. I'll kind of get into the lines a little bit later. But of course, that will be waiting for the goalies. So the goalies are Allmark, Lehner, and Markstrom. So I think these three goalies are kind of the guarantees. I don't see them going other than those three. If they do, hats off to them. They found somebody good, and I really hope he doesn't poop the bed for them. So now we'll take a look at the lines. So as I've said, this is a prediction channel. So we will take kind of a look at what I think the lines will be. And we will start off with the Landeskog line. So you got Landeskog, Backstrom, and Nylander. So I think with this line, you're obviously getting a lot of minutes, a lot of defense, a lot of offense rather. So I think with this line, it's a pretty solid top line. There's definitely not going to be a lot of complaints there. But in the end, I think they'll score goals, and they'll definitely keep the puck out of the net, which, as I said before, is the whole goal of the Swedish team. Obviously, defensively minded game, and then capitalize on teams' mistakes. Similar to that of the New York Islanders, obviously they do play a really tight checking game, so I would like to see Sweden play somewhat of the same, because I think they do match up pretty similarly. The next line will be Elias Pedersen. You got Elias Pedersen, you got Mika Zibanejad, and Jakob Silverberg. So with this line, obviously another line that will definitely be contending, but as I said, I think this line will also be one that will look to the defensive side, although I would like to see this line kind of be the goal-scoring line. One might ask why they're not playing top line, and then I think there is a reason to it, and I think because the top line will be there for that veteran side. So you got Backstrom, you got Landeskog, and then Nylander will kind of be sort of in and out of that. A little bit of a younger player playing with the older guys, but in general, I think the Landeskog-Backstrom combination will excel during this competition. I think kind of bring that steadiness that the veteran leaders do on both sides. So I think in the end, this will be a really good move for them. The next line will be Philip Forsberg with Elias Lindholm and Victor Arvidsson. So with this line, I definitely think that I definitely do think that this line will be a really solid line, and I think with this putting together Arvidsson and Forsberg, I think will be really, really good for the Swedish teams. Obviously, Arvidsson and Forsberg did play together in Nashville, and I think if they can rebuild that chemistry, obviously chemistry is really hard to build, especially when you have two or so weeks that these teams do, because obviously the Olympics only go for 2 weeks. So I think with that, it's important to have previous chemistry. Obviously, if you play together in the NHL, KHL, Dell, or whatever league you want to kind of pick between, I think it is important for these teams to take into consideration the previous experience with their guys, and I think this will kind of be what they'll be end up looking for. My last line will be more of a checking line with Andreas Johnsson. You got Andreas Johnsson, William Karlsson, and Rickard Rakell. So, as I've said in previous videos as well, I am a big fan of hard, fast checking fourth lines. So I think with the Johnsson, Karlsson, and Rakell line, I think it'll be really good for Sweden. Obviously, they do have to really focus on keeping the puck out of their net, and I think this bottom line will be able to do so and really sort of capitalize on mistakes made by other teams. Obviously, this is a really fast sort of line, so I think it will really end up being really good for them. but of course time will tell. Moving on to the super defense, as I like to call them, with the first line being Hedman and Klingberg. So with this line, obviously a pretty solid first line. Both I'd argue are NHL All-Star defensemen. Hedman, I think, is still number one in the NHL. Klingberg is a really underrated player. He does hide behind Heiskanen a little bit, but I think Klingberg will be a really solid top-line guy. One might argue for Ekman-Larsson to be on the top line, but I think instead he'd fit a lot better on the second line alongside Ekholm, and then OEL. I'm just going to write OEL. But basically, OEL is playing his offside right now, so I think he'll be the best fit. As obviously he does play a little bit on his offside, but in general, I think he'll be the best pick. And I think when you take into account the last line of Rasmus Dahlin and Erik Karlsson, you really kind of appreciate what the Team Sweden has in terms of their defense. Not even including sort of a guy like Lindholm is pretty good, especially when you take into account that you're only allowed 6 guys, and you got a 7th defenseman that is you could argue an NHL top defenseman in Lindholm. So in general, I think it is a really good sort of defense core for the Swedish team, and obviously, as I said, that's something that they really take pride in. So I'd like to see them really flash it, take out all the kind of the best NHL defensemen as of right now. So with that, I think that will be the forward and defense group. And then finally, moving on to the last group of Jacob Markstrom and Robin Lehner. So with these two, obviously, I think they're definitely going to be top goalies in this tournament. Although the one thing I will look for is obviously they don't really match up to some of the more top teams, I like to call them, with Canada, U.S., Russia, and then Finland as well has a pretty good goaltending system. So in general, I would like to see them sort of figure out on the defensive side. Obviously, when you got that good of a defensive core, I don't think you have to worry as much about the goaltending, but still, I think this will be the reason why they'll either win or lose. If Markstrom can be really good, or Lehner can be really good, or Allmark for that matter, might be a dark horse candidate for the starter. I think they will have a pretty solid shot, although I would like to see what the heck happens in net, as well as what's going to happen on that forward group, because I think the defense group is pretty well locked. I don't see too much changing, but the top lines in the forward groups I think are definitely one to move. Obviously, there are a lot of different combinations that could happen. Pedersen, Landeskog, Backstrom's Zibanejad, Nylander, and Silverberg for that matter, I think are all players that definitely could move at the deadline. So, of course, we'll see what the heck happens there. But if you made it this far in the video, thanks for watching. If you'd like to drop a like, free likes, consider subscribing, tell your friends, or leave a comment down below your thoughts on Team Sweden. Until next time, see ya.